Hello guys, it's me, Greed here. Soldier in Overwatch 2 is pretty terrible, and I think I want to make a video about why he's pretty terrible. Because a lot of people don't fully understand, and it is going to mix my knowledge with aim and my knowledge of Overwatch, because a big part of why Soldier is terrible is aim related. So I'll explain. First of all, there are three things that come together that probably make him the weakest for one particular reason. He's got the hardest aim type, which is tracking. Tracking is essentially when you are shooting a target, that target is moving around, and you have either a fast firing weapon or a beam weapon of some kind that outputs a constant amount of damage that is not some kind of burst. And you need to keep your crosshair on them throughout a duration of time in order to inflict enough damage to kill them. Then there are things like clicking, which is obviously what it sounds like. It's single clicks of damage output. So think like Ashe, that would be a single click. McCree is a single click. And obviously there is target switching, which isn't super relevant here, but it's basically what Riley does in my video where you're flicking around a lot. And it's mostly for arena shooters. But generally speaking, tracking is the hardest aim type. So Soldier is the only hit scan in the game, or one of the only hit scans in the game, technically speaking, that requires this type. Tracer also, but Tracer doesn't really work like a normal hit scan does. So Soldier is essentially the only hit scan with range that requires good tracking. So another reason he's so bad is because he's got minimal damage. Now, obviously, he's going to have minimal damage because he has a faster firing weapon. Therefore, it just makes more sense that he's going to have a lower damage output. However, even for a tracking weapon, 19 damage is pretty terrible, considering the fact that it's like 14 or so bullets to actually kill someone, which is almost half your magazine. And that's not even accounting for range. So already he's got this niche where you need to land a very large amount of consistent shots on somebody and to then finish them off with a Helix rocket that needs obviously some level of accuracy as well because it is a projectile. And obviously he's cucked by Season 9 pretty hard because with the introduction to Season 9, obviously, his bullets got bigger, which meant it was easier to track people. However, because the health bars got much bigger, he was less rewarded for having good aim, because something that was prior to Season 9 was, although shots were harder to hit, they were much more rewarding to hit. Meaning the skill gap between people with good aim and people with bad aim was larger, because obviously your aim was more impactful, but it was harder to do. Therefore, the better you were at it, you got more value. However, with Season 9 introduced, the kind of closing of the gap between them became easier to hit shots, therefore hitting shots became less valuable, and that doesn't necessarily even out things. That doesn't make it even or fair for that scenario, because there's a lot of cases where you might aim literally perfectly and get no value because they were able to escape into cover because the additional help given by Season 9, whereas the additional hitbox change might have done absolutely nothing for you in that scenario, where all that happened is because your aim was actually so good, it meant that you didn't need the Season 9 hitbox changes in order to perform. However, they're getting the benefits of Season 9 with the bigger health bars, which make it not fair, and especially bad for Soldier, considering the fact that he isn't able to put out extremely sharp pressure extremely quickly and kill a target before they're able to react and escape into cover, unlike a lot of other hit scans do, which is why a lot of people don't like hit scans. For example, Ashe isn't very interactive to play against because if she gets on an aggressive angle that you're not infinitely aware of, you might just have a scenario where she blows your brains out in 2 seconds, whereas Soldier isn't capable of that same thing, which makes Soldier more fair, but also significantly worse, potentially hard capped by the fact that other hit scans basically just do his job a lot better than he does. First of all, he's massively outclassed in this role. Take something like Sojourn that outputs a similar amount of value, but for significantly less effort, because you just bullet hose your projectiles everywhere, you don't have any range fall off, and if you hit your projectiles, you're rewarded with a railgun, which is essentially a hit scan Helix rocket without a cooldown. Sojourn is just Soldier on steroids. Everything Soldier can do, Sojourn can do significantly better in every way, other than maybe Shooter Farah. But that's kind of it. That's the only niche that Soldier might hold, but even then, every other hit scan in the game basically does it better as well. Even Tracer to some degree, because you're able to harass the backline, especially if they're playing Pharmacy. It becomes much easier to go into the backline and kill the enemy support, whereas Soldier's not exactly capable of doing that. Therefore, I think Tracer's actually better at dealing with Pharmacy than Soldier is. You also have things like McCree, Hanzo, and Ashe, and so on, that are able to output large amounts of burst damage from much farther away than Soldier is, which is what I was talking about earlier, where his pressure isn't exactly sharp enough to be able to output enough value quick enough to kill a target, unlike a lot of those other hit scan options. Obviously, Hanzo isn't a hit scan, but his burst damage is so high that he does fight for Soldier's role to some degree. They are obviously filling the same niche in some scenarios. Another thing is he's got low impact in his ultimate, especially with Season 9, it makes it that even having aimbot is really not that useful, especially when people can run away from you. In a lot of cases, if you do have very good aim, you are actually better off just shooting people than visoring. Visoring is more of a space control zoning kind of ultimate, where people know if they peek, they've only got so long before they basically guaranteed to die. Therefore, the option is to just run away and hide. So it's okay for zoning, it's definitely got that kind of strength, but when it comes to actually kill potential, doesn't really have it. It operates a little bit like Dragon does. The kill potential isn't really there, although Dragon has ult combos. Visor just kind of exists. It is just kind of a don't peek me, I will kill you ability, instead of some kind of win condition ultimate where he's able to output a ton of value. Now, I personally quite like this, because I think Visor is quite a boring ultimate. I don't think it's very interesting. I don't think it's very skill based. So I'm totally fine with it being on the weaker side and being more of a zoning ult, but when compared to something like Sojourn ult, it just doesn't even compete at all. Sojourn ult is a zoning ult, and it just kills everyone you see, so it's not exactly the fairest thing in the world. Another thing is he's got basically no burst damage outside of his Helix rocket, and by basically I mean absolutely no burst damage outside of Helix rocket, and Helix rocket is not exactly a very easy projectile to hit. Most people, when they're using Helix rocket, will be shooting at the ground at people's feet. Now, if you think about more mobile characters like an Echo, can't really Helix rocket the feet of an Echo, or Pharah. In a lot of cases, you can't do it to a Sojourn either, because if they're reacting fast enough, they're going to slide jump. And it becomes a situation where Helix rocket becomes too difficult to land for how little burst it actually gives you. Now, it's worse than a Sojourn rail because it can't crit. It's also worse than a Sojourn rail because it isn't hit scan, and it's worse because it's got a cooldown. So obviously, there are a lot of factors that come into Helix rocket not being very good. It's obviously the strongest part of his kit, that or his sprint most likely, but when it comes to something like McCree, you're able to basically output a Helix rocket's worth of damage by just simply shooting someone in the face. Now obviously it's not just a simple case of just shoot him in the face lol, but when it comes to projectile versus hit scan, it is technically easier with aim training in order to headshot people on McCree than it is to impact people with a projectile like Helix rocket. Therefore, technically speaking, McCree's headshots, although they output more damage, are also easier to land than Helix rocket in a lot of cases, unless you are obviously shooting the floor of someone. Then obviously the Helix rocket is significantly easier to land because you can just shoot the floor. Another thing is he's easily healed through his damage. You really cannot kill someone that's being healed in this game on Soldier. Soldier's got this big issue where if you don't land basically every shot, you may as well just not be shooting people, because obviously they can escape into cover so quickly, but also because you need that very large amount of consistency in his shooting in order to actually kill someone, because of how easy it is to apply healing in this game. Think of all the different ways that you could be healed, and then think about how easy they all are. Anna heal is very easy, Mercy heal is easy, Zen orb is easy, the Pylon is easy, Ilarius heal is easy, Weaver heal is easy, Lucio heal is easy, and there's so many of those that will heal through Soldier damage if you're not maintaining like 100% accuracy and weaving in a lot of headshots as well. So it becomes the case that you really only be able to kill a target if they're actively not being healed by the support, and if they are, it may end up being more effort than it's worth to try and kill that target because of the fact that it is so difficult to aim on Soldier. So it becomes difficult to actually really do anything on your character, especially against certain comps that want to brawl together or stay tightly knit together, or poke compositions that are going to have something in a pocket like a Mercy or whatever. So playing Soldier into something like that is obviously going to have a lot of issues, because you're going to have to be able to output a higher level of mechanical ability than the people you're fighting, and have to cut through all the healing that they're doing. It is a very tough thing to do on Soldier, and it's a big reason that I think he's very bad. Poor utility options as well. Now, not a lot of the DPS have amazing utility like Mei or Sombra or Echo or whatever it may be. Like these kind of utility DPS that have like a big burst of something very useful. Obviously Sombra with hack, Mei with wall, Echo has dupe and stickies to pressure people. Soldier doesn't really have that. The most utility he has is a healing station, which isn't exactly a utility because it is a tool to be used to sustain yourself on an angle, not for your team. Therefore, I wouldn't really base it as utility because it's not for your team. It's not something that gives your team something in exchange for you're not giving your teammate, like you're not walling in a Reinhardt so your team can close down on him. You're not hitting a big nade and then everyone can obviously deal with the fact that that person's anti. It's very much just that I've taken damage on this angle. I need to sustain myself. I'm putting my heal station down. It's very weak as well. It's usually just the case where you throw it down, sprint around in it for a second to get enough health to run away, and then you run away anyway. He's got weak mobility compared to a lot of other characters. Now this is fine. I think Soldier's sprint is totally fine. I think it's great for his hero. And this is more of a complaint with other characters than it is with Soldier. I don't think Soldier should get changed in this way. But when you think about it, Soldier and Slide is just simply a superior option than the sprint is. It's linear and predictable as well. It's easier to tell where he's going. The only actual strength he has in his sprint is his ability to dart left and right incredibly quickly. So if someone doesn't have very good aim, well, you'll obviously get away. But in the higher ranks where people do have good aim, it's yeah, you're not really getting away from a lot of people with a sprint if people do get on top of you. So yeah, there's not a lot of combat advantage in the sprint. It's more of a repositioning tool than it is an escape tool, which I think is absolutely fine. Again, that's more of a complaint with other characters like Soldier and Slade and so on being too strong. He falls off a lot at the higher ranks because at lower ranks you can obviously farm a lot of value with aim, but in the higher ranks players can track him more easily. Supports counter his poke. He can't keep up with heroes who have more playmaking tools and so on. He just kind of gets hard capped by his value of the fact that he is just simply a character that's based on can you shoot these guys, and everyone in the higher ranks can shoot these guys except Soldier. When he does the can I shoot these guys thing, it's not really all that powerful because his can I shoot these guys value isn't very strong because his damage is so low and his aim type is so difficult because it's obviously harder to track people than it is to click on people, and obviously you are outputting less damage because tracking is simply a less consistent way of outputting damage. He's just worse in every way when it comes to actually outputting pressure like that. And he's obviously not a specialist. This is another big thing with Soldier that I think is fine, but it is obviously going to go towards one of his weaknesses. Other DPS have defined niches, either being a burst, a flank, a zoning, or a crowd control kind of character. Soldier is a jack of all trades, which means he's a master of none, so he's very rarely the best pick, which again is totally fine, but it is something to understand. Like, for example, if you are on a poke map, you would go Widowmaker or Sojourner, Freya or something. If you're going a Hitscan and you want to be a bit more brawl-based, you may go McCree. If you want to take the role of what Soldier basically does, then you would just go Sojourner anyway. It's hard to justify picking Soldier over a lot of other heroes when Soldier is as bad as he is. So a couple of things to fix him would likely just be buffing his damage from 19 to 20, 21 or 22, likely to be 21 because the Season 9 changes, and if anything, even just nerf his bullets again so they go smaller. And if you were going to do that, let's say you keep the 250, keep Season 9, make Soldier's bullets the original size they were before Season 9, and then just buff the damage up to like 22 or something. Just make him a little bit stronger, because right now his damage output is genuinely terrible and he doesn't feel rewarding to play. You need to have an insane amount of headshots, and you need to have basically 100% accuracy in tracking someone, and with that accuracy you need to be hitting headshots to kill someone. I don't think it's fair that it requires that level of mechanical output in order to win when other characters require so little mechanical output, so little idea of positioning, because obviously you have to realize that Soldier has a harder positional requirement than a lot of other characters do because he has less mobility options to move around, therefore his positioning has to be better because he's less likely to be able to escape. So he can't just escape as well, and he can't kill people as well, and that's a problem. Anyway, I love you all. I hope you have a good day. You're all beautiful. You're all gorgeous. I'll see you guys later. Goodbye, 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 goodbye.